What's up, everybody? Welcome back to DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined today by Daniel Starkand. Daniel, it's a weird thing still as a National League fans to be talking about the designated hitter, but here we are. We're talking about JD Martinez, and in particular, a quote Dave Roberts gave a handful of days ago about Martinez. Here's what he said, quote, I don't expect JD to DH 162 games, but he's going to be the guy who's going to be in that position 99.9% of the time. Ignore the fact that the math here makes no sense. I guess he's going to only be DHing 161 times, according to Dave Roberts. But when you see this quote, on one hand, maybe not surprised because we knew JD Martinez wasn't playing the field, but are you surprised to hear 99.9% of the time?
Like you said, like when they signed JD, you knew that was going to be his role. Like he's not a guy who has played outfield in a while and not exactly a guy you want out there. But in the sense that it is a shift from kind of what the organizational philosophy previous was, then yeah, it is a bit of a surprise. Like we know the Dodgers have typically used the DH over the last few seasons when they've had it to get guys off their feet for a day, but still keep them in the lineup. So you still have their bat while they don't necessarily need to play defense. Like the Dodgers haven't had one set DH ever. So this is going to be a change. But when you sign a guy like JD, you don't really have another choice because you're not going to play him in the outfield. So it's unfortunate. You probably would like other guys to DH some, but this is just what we got. So you got to roll with it.
Yeah. And I think, when the Dodgers seem to be operating on a budget for most of the offseason, this is kind of the type of sacrifices that you have to make if you want to get impactful bats. The way you do that at affordable cost is by signing a guy who can't play defense. You limit, to use Andrew Friedman's word, your optionality here because you can't rotate him. If JD Martinez isn't DHing, he's sitting on the bench and will be a pinch hitter. It's that simple. The thing to me that is the most striking is the impact that this is going to have on one player in particular, and it's my guy. It's Will Smith. We know that no team in Major League Baseball has a catcher who starts 162 times. I mean, we're talking about 1 to 2 days off a week for Will Smith. Well, if JD Martinez is DHing 161 times, that means Will Smith, who I would say pretty comfortably is your third best hitter. If you want to make a case for Max Muncy, okay, but probably your third best hitter, and he's just not going to be in the lineup 25 to 30% of the time. Like, that's kind of crazy to me.
Yeah. And I looked it up. Will Smith DH'd 26 times last season, which means that's now 26 games that you had him in the lineup that you're not going to. I'll be curious to see. Maybe this means he catches more. But as we know, Dave Roberts has not fallen out of love with Austin Barnes. So I would still expect, I think it was like, 2/3 of the time or 3/4, Will Smith would be behind the plate and Austin Barnes would be catching for him or would be catching the other, part of the time. I'll be curious to see if Will Smith ends up getting more starts at catcher now, or if he's just out of the lineup more, which I think we'd both agree would be the least ideal outcome of this.
Yeah, so Will Smith caught 106 games last year, started 106 games as a catcher. So 56 times he was not your catcher. Just pause for a second. That means 56 times in 2023, Will Smith just isn't playing. That's more than a third of your games where Will Smith is just going to be out of the lineup, your third best bat. And oh, by the way, in a season where the margins are going to be way slimmer. You and I recorded last week a video talking about the offseason and all the moves the Padres and the Mets and the Phillies have made and how the gap has narrowed. We think the Dodgers are still right there. But now, you're going to be in a division that we think is going to be decided by 5 or less games, one way or the other. And you're telling me the third best player is going to miss 56 games. Now, maybe he catches some more, but I mean, what's the highest you think that number gets to? 115? Like maybe 9 more games that he catches? So, of course, he might DH 3 or 4 times, but that's the part to me that I was fine with the JD Martinez signing, but now that I'm kind of seeing the implications of it, it worries me, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, and part of me kind of wants to stick JD Martinez in left field for 15 games to keep Will Smith in the lineup. I don't know how realistic that is. I feel like they could live with poor defense in left field for 15 games. It's like less than 10% of your games. and the offense you'd be getting from Will Smith as DH would probably make up for any misplays out in left field. So I'll be curious to see maybe if we get midway through the season and that becomes an option, just because like you said, you don't want Will Smith on the bench 50, 60 times a year. Like that, to me, that's putting one of your best hitters intentionally on the bench for like 30, 40% of your games. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So it'll be interesting. I don't think, like, outside of Will Smith, I don't think this is a major issue. Like, I think if you look around at other positions, like, it's not like last year, I think Justin Turner was the main guy where it's like, yeah, he needs to DH a lot to get off his feet because he's getting older. The Dodgers don't really have any of that now. Like Mookie and Freddie, they're going to play almost every day and be fine. Up the middle, like Lux and Vargas, they're young guys. They're fine. Like, and in the outfield, they got enough guys to rotate. Like, it's not like you're DHing Chris Taylor or Trace Thompson or anything. So I think the only problem here is Will Smith. So I'll be interested to see how they sort it out, because I think we're both in agreement. We want Will Smith in the lineup as much as possible, even if it does come at the expense of, JD Martinez a few games.
Yeah, and maybe that's the point. Maybe Will Smith just DHs the same number and you just bench JD Martinez, which still isn't ideal because he's probably your fifth best bat in the lineup behind Smith and Martinez. But that's a better solution to me. And I actually like the idea, because let's just say this. Will Smith is not going to be playing the field. Like, he's not going to be taking reps at third base or first base or something. But to your point about JD Martinez, I mean, the Dodgers are one of the best analytical organizations out there. I'm sure they can figure out at some point, do we have a pitcher that is better at limiting fly balls? And can we throw a bullpen full of guys like Brusdar Graterol who are just going to induce ground ball? And we're just going to say we're going to throw to JD Martinez in left field because, oh, by the way, they don't really have great solutions in left field and center field at the moment outside of Peralta. And then say, we're just going to give ourselves the best chance of throwing pitchers out there who are somehow going to limit the number of fly balls to left field and maximize the number of ground balls, something like that. To me, those are the two better options than JD Martinez DHing 161 times. It's option A is throw him in left field 15 times. Option B is just bench him the 26 times that Will Smith needs to be your DH, because you just plain and simple cannot afford to have Will Smith out of your lineup. I'm curious what people think below. Like, would you be okay with JD Martinez in left field if it meant Will Smith's bat staying in? Would you rather JD Martinez being benched, or are you okay somehow with Will Smith only playing 110, 120 games total and being benched for a quarter of the season otherwise? Let us know in the comments below. As always, check out DodgerBlue.com, DodgerBlue1958 on social media. Please subscribe and ring the notification bell here as well. And of course, if you're a podcast person, search DodgerHeads. Please give us a follow. We are available on Spotify, Google, Apple, wherever you get your podcast. We appreciate you joining us. That's Daniel. I'm Jeff. As always, go Dodgers.